Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we return to 1982 for probably one of the most impactful issue runs of the Marvel series. I'm your host, Nathan B. Butler. The issues we're looking at this time, and I'm going to have to talk kind of quick because there's a lot to cover here, are issue number 61, entitled Screams in the Void. Issue number 62, entitled Pariah, Luke Skywalker. Pariah, it says here on the cover. Issue number 63, with Vader saying, Luke Skywalker, I have come for you. This is entitled The Mind Spider. And this one is one that, just like Bazaar a while back, I've got this copy of for my set. But then, for those interested in my collection, I do have one here, signed also by Walt Simonson. You can also find the story these days in Star Wars Omnibus A Long Time Ago, Volume 3. This is a story by David Michelinie, with input this time around by Walt Simonson, who does the pencils for much of this arc, but not all of it. Tom Palmer winds up picking up much of the artistic chores on the third issue of this particular story. This storyline begins with Shira Bree being decorated for the events of Shira's story, issue number 60 a while back, the one that gave her supposed origins. She's being promoted from lieutenant to captain by Leia. She then winds up celebrating a bit, walking off with Luke, causing Leia to be a little bit saddened. She's not quite sure why she feels that way when she sees Shira with Luke, but it turns her to looking at some holograms and such of Han, because of course Han is the one that she loves, professed back in The Empire Strikes Back. We were also then very quickly reminded of that armada that the Empire has out there that the rebels are worried about, led by Admiral Guile, G-I-E-L, or Guile. And we finally find out what they're carrying, and it's a little bit weird. It's called a Teasel, T-E-Z-L. It's the only one they know of, and that weird psychedelic kind of creepy looking thing there is the Teasel. It is this weird non-sentient but alive telepathic being that allows them to have instantaneous telepathic communication with the rest of the fleet. It could give the Empire a major edge in upcoming confrontations. And apparently the rebels know about this because they want to destroy it or capture it for themselves rather than let the Empire keep their hands on it. So they know the Armada is out there, and apparently by this issue they know what the Armada has with it. And that is when the battle must begin. As they prepare for this deadly battle in which they may not return, Luke and Shira finally share a kiss, again getting the audience to care more about this character. And the battle begins with 4 of our pilots, including Luke and Shira, taking off in those stolen TIE fighters they got back in the Sundown Bazaar storyline and that they used in Shira's story to attack some Imperial targets without being recognized. In the battle that ensues, there's all kinds of crazy electronic warfare going on, blocking communications and whatnot, to finally get to a point where Luke has to fly the last part of the mission to destroy the Armada's flagship. Guile's going to be able to escape, but it's going to destroy the flagship, and in the process, destroy the Teasel, or whatever you want to call the thing, however you're supposed to pronounce T-E-E-Z-L. In the final moments of that battle, as they're destroying it, Luke swoops down in his TIE fighter, and there's another TIE fighter in the way. And at this point, communications are dead. They had these identify friend-foe type things on the starfighters, but now they can't use them. And all their frequencies are being jammed other than the Imperial Warband, so they can't use that either to communicate. So Luke has to go just by the Force to determine whether this is a friend or a foe in front of him in this TIE fighter. And the Force guides him and tells him, this is a foe. This is an enemy, possibly even about to attack you. Attack, attack, attack. Take it out. It is a threat. So Luke does so. Right there, his last firing blows up that TIE fighter before a super powerful blast shoots the flagship, and boom, the Teasel is gone. The threat is over. Only when they eventually return, or at least not the flagship, but the ship that the Teasel is on, when they return, everybody's kind of cold to Luke, and they're not quite sure why, until Luke sees footage from the battle picked up by one of the other pilots, identifying the pilot of that final TIE fighter he destroyed before making his last attack on the Teasel ship. Turns out the pilot inside was Shira. And he's not quite sure what to make of this as we move into the second issue, entitled Pariah, because the Force doesn't generally steer him wrong. He's not sure about his connection to the Force. He's not sure if it's leading him in the right direction. Was there something else about Shira he didn't know? Why would the Force have told him that she was the enemy? Unfortunately, Leia cannot defend him in this situation. She can't be seen to show favoritism, and all the evidence looks like he just killed a fellow rebel pilot. Now, granted, it wasn't on purpose, surely, but that's not what the others who have become very fond of Shira, thanks in part to Shira's story, are going to feel about this. She's a very well-liked character. Luke decides that after spending a lot of time being given the cold shoulder by the others, that he needs to go and try to find answers, and he needs to go back to Shalabane, which was the homeworld supposedly of Shira that they were on in Shira's story. He wants to use the Millennium Falcon, but Lando says, hey, I'm not going to get myself in trouble by letting you go. They don't want anybody else to get off base. So, matter of fact, I've received specific instructions not to let you anywhere near the Falcon. And that's exactly what I plan to do. Just as soon as I pick up my spare cape at the base laundry. Shouldn't take more than, Luke suggests, 15 minutes? 15 it is. So he lets Luke take the Millennium Falcon. Chewbacca decides to go with him, whether Luke wants him to put him in danger or not. They wind up going back to Shalabane, where they are captured by some of those nomads that they had fought earlier, only to find out that the stories that they heard are completely bogus. There was no human tribe on Shalabane in Chinsasa. It's always just been these alien nomads. And out of nowhere, the Empire came in a few years ago and just blew stuff up, started blowing up their cities. Now that's the city that Shira says was their city that had been destroyed when the Imperials attacked and betrayed the populace, or the nomads betrayed them at the signing of that peace accord. So it seems as though not only is this happening later than said, it seems as though a lot of Shira's story is bogus. Luke winds up passing a test, basically showing his non-aggression and his use of the Force, he's basically asked how strong his gods are, right? Are your gods strong enough for us to allow you through, or should we just kill you? And he's basically tested by them having these 3 cups with a ball in one of them. And rather than just picking which one the ball is in, Luke uses the Force and lifts up all 3 cups and points out the ball. To which the guide character basically goes, not expecting to do that. Ha! You got some pretty strong gods there. Ha! You okay? It's kind of funny the way that it winds up playing out there. But they make their way to what was supposedly the site of that battle, the memorial that Shira went to. They check it out. Nothing seems to happen except up behind it. It's an Imperial transmitter of some kind. But it's not working. Luke can't just get it to work by just, working the controls of it. Something's up. Wait. Shira had put a drop of blood onto it. It must have reacted to her blood. So Luke, thinking it might react to anyone's blood rather than just Shira's, drops his own drop of blood on it, only for it to emerge with a holographic presentation. Luke, I've come for you. It's Vader coming through the transmission specifically for Luke. That brings us to issue number 3, the Mind Spider. Apparently Vader has been way ahead of Luke this entire time, and Shira was an agent working for him. Her job was either to kill him or discredit him, the latter of which she's managed to do. Now that Luke has found this transmitter, he assumes that Luke now knows of Shira's duplicity, and therefore he has nowhere else to go. Vader says, and since you are here, obviously alive, I must assume that the latter option has been affected, that you are now an outcast, a pariah, untrusted and quite possibly loathed by those you care about most. Thus there is but one entity who will accept you, trust you, treat you as an equal. Luke, I've come for you, and now you must come to me. It's all a setup. Shira was there to either kill him or to discredit him along the way. Luke, of course, now needs proof. He has to be able to prove his innocence. So he goes to a place called Crake's Planet, where there's this sort of crazy structure that includes an Imperial data facility, and he wants to steal information that would prove who Shira really is, what her mission really was, that she was actually a spy within the rebellion, not an actual rebel at heart. Along the mission, he is, of course, pursued by Vader, never winds up coming face-to-face with Vader, though, makes his way through and finds the recordings that he needs here. The recording runs, working, file program to follow subject. Shira Ilan Kola Bree. Current rank, Major Imperial Special Forces. Personal history, judged ideal. Born in Empire Capital. Let's note here, we're seeing the Imperial Capital here. It is the first time the Marvel series, or really anything, is showing us the Imperial Capital, which will of course get named Coruscant when it finally becomes a major factor in the modern EU starting in 1991 with Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire that relaunches the EU in the modern official continuity. And yes, that was the book just thumping down. To continue, Raised in Palace of Emperor Palpatine as part of an experiment in adolescent indoctrination. Experiment totally successful. Gained expert training in all known forms of combat. Intelligence and coordination both extraordinary. Biologically altered to reject pain and to accelerate physical healing process. That's a big deal, the Wolverine factor here. Graduated with top honors in History of Academy. Record unequaled since. Personally selected by Lord Vader for infiltration into banned organization known as Rebel Alliance. See reference log number 49734. Vader project required total razing of city of Chinsasa on planet Shalavane to establish credible background for subject. Project's purpose, the elimination, either actual or effectual, of Rebel Commander Luke Skywalker. Project status, open, end of program. He's got all the proof that he needs. They managed to escape with it, thanks to Chewbacca, really, and make their way back to the rebellion, where they will hopefully be able to prove his innocence. Bear in mind, however, though, that Shira, while thought dead, is not actually dead. Her body has been recovered, we learn, in an epilogue at the very end of this third issue of this particular story arc. She's being worked on by medical droids, and we see her in a Bacta tank. He gets all kinds of information about her prognosis and such, and he says, good, because now more than ever I have need of Shira Bree. And we're used to one picture by Chris Travas lately on page 220 of Jedi vs. Sith, The Essential Guide to the Force by Ryder Wyndham. We're used to this image these days of Shira when she's injured, there with Vader, and she's eventually going to become Lumaya. We're used to that being the modern image. That was not the first and most iconic image. What stuck in the minds of Marvel readers back then and Marvel readers now is this one, aboard the Executor. And it says, rather fittingly here, the warships move on as the icy chill of space, for a fleeting moment, seems colder still. We will soon see her back in the series as Lumaya, the Dark Lady of the Sith. David Michelinie and Walt Simonson have set up a great storyline here, twisting things around, setting them up issues in advance, and we will soon see the payoff with Luke in the next few issues, and then eventually with Lumaya, primarily after Return of the Jedi. Great stuff. Really something we should check out. So, the question then becomes, is this an essential read? I would say yes. These issues are essential to understand the background of Lumaya / Shira Bree, to understand her when she comes back in Legacy of the Force. You need this background because she doesn't get much in the pages of Legacy of the Force. Read these issues. Again, it is issues 61, 62, and 63 of the Marvel series, found these days in Omnibus 3 of a long time ago. You will not regret checking this one out. On that positive note, we end this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.